James McDermott is on the front lines of fighting this gang as a police officer in Long Island. He is also the Nassau County Police PBA president and was at the president's roundtable today. Ali Noorani is the executive director of the National Immigration Forum. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I'd like to start with you, Officer McDermott, because can you explain to those at home who may not be as familiar as those of us who live in this area and other areas of the country are, about why you would call these individuals animals?
Well, they're a heinous group, a street gang, domestic terrorists, in my opinion. They not only are involved in drug trafficking, human trafficking, prostitution. They commit murders, rapes, robberies, burglaries, any penal law crime you can figure out, they've committed, and their crimes, when they do kill somebody, it's usually a mutilation, a beheading, stabbing bodies hundreds and thousands of times. They're a despicable group.
And they purposefully dismember bodies and leave them in condition that in some cases they are completely unrecognizable, correct?
Yeah, unidentifiable for the family, yes.
Ali, do you agree that these individuals, could correctly be called animals for their behavior?
Well, first, I have to say three things, Martha. I mean, first and foremost, our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of these victims. I mean, the tragedy, the anguish, it's just awful. Number two, I want to thank the men and women in blue who are serving and protecting communities in Long Island and across the country and are really addressing this problem head on. And number three, we want to really think about what's the solution here, because MS-13, if they are a violent criminal, they do not belong in our country, full stop. And the fact is that they are often preying on immigrant communities. So the solution here is to make sure that immigrant communities are trusting law enforcement, and they are the ones who are reporting those crimes and saying, you know what, that person over there, that is a hardened criminal who I do not want in my community. So these are the kinds of solutions that we have to be focusing on, and I hope, and I think the majority of Americans hope, that we can really move beyond the name calling and let's talk about solutions.
Let me ask you about, so it sounds like you probably were surprised when you heard the backlash by some in the media who were very offended by President Trump's comment the other day. When he said these are animals, people gave him a really hard time for saying that. So do you agree with them?
Well, I'm kind of wondering who the president is talking about anymore when he talks about immigrants. Because remember, at the beginning of last year and over the course of the last 12 months, he's been talking about a bill of love for dreamers. He rarely talks about that anymore. And we've got a legitimate debate happening in Congress that the majority of Americans would like to see a solution for dreamers. So I think the president has a real opportunity to bring the country together, bring Congress together, and find some real legislative solutions that protect dreamers, secure our border, and yes, make sure that the violent, hardened criminals that are MS-13 gang members are not part of our communities.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of surprised, Officer McDermott, when I heard the backlash to what was said, because the president in that statement was absolutely talking about MS-13 gang members and what they had done to people and the fact that they have no right to be in this country. So in terms of that backlash, and what do we need to define here in terms of how we're discussing this?
Well, going to the animal statement, I believe the president tried to clear it up today at the roundtable discussion that he was speaking specifically about the MS-13 gang. He definitely wasn't speaking about the El Salvadorian community. I think he's an emotional person. He shoots from the hip. Like I said earlier today, the person the people to ask if animal was an okay statement is the victims' families. Yeah. And you saw how they responded.
Yeah, you saw exactly how they feel. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Good to have both of you here today.
Thank you.